"Mom, they're yours now," she said, abandoning her 6 children with her 70-year-old mother before leaving. But she never expected that, 5 years later, that cruel act would lead to an unbelievable miracle. Welcome to our channel. Today's story will definitely make you furious, but trust me, the ending will warm your heart. Please give us a like to support the grandmother and comment below what city you're watching from. Now, let's begin. The slam of the door sounded like a final shot. Beatrice Williams, 70 years old, stood frozen. Her 3 5-year-old daughter, Megan, didn't even look back. "I have to live my own life. I can't be stuck here with these 6 kids anymore." "Megan, wait!" Beatrice called out desperately, but the taxi had already sped off. Behind her, in the cramped living room, 6 innocent pairs of eyes were watching. Ethan, 10 years old, was trying to comfort the 2-year-old baby. "Grandma," 8-year-old Sophia asked timidly, "where did Mommy go?" Beatrice looked at her 6 grandchildren, then down at the farewell letter on the table. She only had $50 to live on for the next 2 weeks, and now she had 7 mouths to feed. The 70-year-old grandmother's battle for survival began at that very moment. The children's crying brought her back to reality. She carefully folded the letter, tucking it into the pocket of her worn apron, and opened her arms. "Come here, my love." One by one, the children came to her. Beatrice wrapped them in a hug that seemed impossible for a woman of her age and size. But love has ways of multiplying when it's needed most. She pressed them against her chest, feeling their small bodies tremble with fear and confusion. "Are they going to separate us, Grandma?" Ethan asked, and in his voice was a painful maturity, too heavy for his 10 years. Beatrice looked him straight in the eyes. Those brown eyes that were identical to his late father Michael's, the good man who had died in a construction site accident 2.5 years ago. His death left Megan a widow with 6 small children, as Ava had been born just before the accident, adding to her burden. "Nobody," Beatrice said with a firmness she didn't know she possessed, "is going to separate this family. Do you hear me? Nobody." "You promise?" cried Charlotte. "I swear on Almighty God." Beatrice made the sign of the cross. "I swear on my life. I swear on the soul of your father who is watching over us from heaven." Ethan nodded, wiping his tears with the back of his hand. He stood up a little straighter, squaring his thin shoulders. "I'm going to help you, Grandma. I can take care of my brothers and sisters." "I know, my sweet boy. I know." That night, Beatrice prepared dinner with the little she had in the pantry. Watery noodle soup, day-old bread, and some canned beans. The children ate in silence, occasionally glancing at the door, perhaps hoping their mother would appear and say it had all been a terrible mistake. But the door remained closed. After putting the little ones to bed, 3 in each room, packed in like sardines, Beatrice sat in the kitchen. The dim light of the single bulb revealed every crack in the walls, every water stain, every sign of time and poverty. She took out the letter again and reread it. "I'm looking for a better life," the words burned. And these children, what about them? Didn't they deserve a better life too? Beatrice closed her eyes. She was 70 years old. She should be resting, enjoying her final years in peace. But life, it seemed, had other plans. She heard a soft noise and opened her eyes. Ethan was in the kitchen doorway with a sleeping Ava in his arms. "I couldn't sleep," he whispered. "You neither, Grandma." Beatrice motioned for him to come closer. The boy sat next to her, gently rocking his little sister. "Ethan, son, I need you to be strong, stronger than any 10-year-old boy should have to be." "I will be, Grandma. I promise. We're going to get through this," Beatrice said, more to convince herself than the boy. "I don't know how, but we will." Ethan looked at her with those ancient eyes, eyes that had seen too much pain for his age. "I know, Grandma. Because you're never going to leave us, right?" The question broke Beatrice's heart in two. She hugged him, and Ava close, This family, fractured but not broken, damaged but not destroyed. Never, my love, never. Outside, the night of Indianapolis roared with its millions of stories. But inside that small house, a new story was beginning. A story of sacrifice and love. A story that 5 years later would surprise everyone. But that night, Beatrice knew only one thing. Tomorrow she would have to find a way to put food in 6 hungry mouths. And the day after tomorrow, and the day after that. She stood up, carrying Ethan and Ava back to bed. She tucked them in with the threadbare blankets, kissed their foreheads, and whispered a prayer her own grandmother had taught her more than 60 years ago. Angel of God, my guardian dear, to whom God's love commits me here, ever this day be at my side, to light and guard, to rule and guide. She closed the door softly and returned to the kitchen. On the table, a pile of unpaid bills. In her pocket, a letter of abandonment. In her heart, a love bigger than fear. What was she going to do now? The dawn came too soon, seeping through the faded curtains like a relentless thief. Beatrice hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Megan's face. She heard the slam of the door. She felt the weight of 6 lives depending on her. She got up before the children, preparing breakfast with automatic movements. Watery oatmeal, sweetened with a little brown sugar. There was no milk. She would have to buy some today, but that meant spending money she didn't have. "Good morning, Grandma." Ethan appeared in the kitchen, already dressed in his school uniform. His pants were too short, his shoes worn to the point of showing his toes. "Good morning, my sweet boy. Did you wake up your siblings?" "Yes. Sophia is helping Charlotte and Ava get dressed. Caleb and Liam are fighting over a toy." Beatrice sighed. Life went on. Even after a personal apocalypse, one by one, the children appeared. Sophia, with her long hair messily combed, leading Ava by the hand. Caleb and Liam, still grumbling at each other. Charlotte, with her eyes swollen from crying. They sat at the table, looking at the oatmeal with expressions that mixed hunger and disappointment. They missed the breakfasts their mother used to make. Scrambled eggs, bacon, and toast. But those days were over. "Is she coming back today?" Liam asked with the cruel innocence of his 4 years. "No, my love." Beatrice served the oatmeal onto chipped plates. "Your mommy needs some time." "How much time?" Caleb insisted. Beatrice had no answer. Instead, she served the oatmeal and urged them to eat quickly. School started in an hour. After breakfast, the chaos of getting 6 children ready to leave, backpacks to find, notebooks to locate, faces to wash, teeth to brush. Beatrice moved as best she could, her knees protesting with every step, her back reminding her that she was 70, not 40. Finally, they went out onto the street. The Indianapolis neighborhood was waking up with its characteristic hustle and bustle. Street vendors shouted their offers. Radios blared music, the smell of hot dogs and coffee mixing with the exhaust from the city buses. Beatrice walked with the older children toward the elementary school, carrying Ava on her hip. Every block was an eternity, every step an effort. "Grandma?" Sophia took her free hand. "We're going to be okay." Beatrice squeezed that small, trusting hand. "Yes, my love, we're going to be okay." But as she said the words, a terrible doubt gnawed at her heart. How? How were they going to be okay? She dropped the children off at school, ignoring the curious glances of other parents, the whispered questions. News travels fast in neighborhoods. Everyone would already know that Megan had left, leaving 6 children with her elderly mother. On the way home with Ava asleep in her arms, Beatrice stopped in front of the grocery store. She needed to buy food, but when she took out her wallet, reality hit her like a hammer. $50. That was all she had until her Social Security check arrived in 2 weeks. $50 to feed 7 people for 14 days. The world tilted. Beatrice leaned against a wall, hugging Ava tightly, feeling like she was suffocating. "Mrs. Williams, are you all right?" The voice came from Mr. Harrison, her 78-year-old neighbor. A thin man with a white mustache and kind eyes who had lived alone since his wife died 10 years ago. Mr. Harrison. Beatrice tried to smile, but failed miserably. "I heard about Megan," he said softly. "That's unbelievable. How are the children?" Scared, confused. Beatrice felt tears burning her eyes. "And I don't know what to do, Mr. Harrison. I don't know how I'm going to." Her voice broke. She couldn't finish the sentence because the truth was too terrifying to say out loud. "Mr. Harrison placed a hand on her shoulder. "You'll find a way, Mrs. Williams. You're strong. I've seen it all these years we've been neighbors." "Strong?" Beatrice laughed without humor. "I'm 70 years old. I can barely manage my own life." "Well, now you have 6 reasons to be even stronger." Beatrice looked at Ava, sleeping in her arms, her dark curls falling over her angelic face. She thought of Ethan trying to be brave, of Sophia helping her younger siblings, of all of them, scared but trusting that she would save them. "I won't let them down," she whispered. "I can't." "You won't," Mr. Harrison smiled. "Look, let me help you, at least for today. Come on, let's go to the store together. Today's groceries are on me." "I can't accept it." "Of course you can. We're neighbors, practically family." He gestured with his hand. "Come on, don't argue. These old bones need to feel useful." Beatrice wanted to protest, but pride was a luxury she could no longer afford. She nodded, swallowing her tears. As they walked toward the market, Mr. Harrison telling stories to lighten the mood, Beatrice made a silent promise. She didn't know how, but she was going to get through this. She was going to raise these children. She was going to give them love, an education, a future. And if Megan ever came back, she would find that the children she abandoned had blossomed in spite of everything. The sun rose over Indianapolis, illuminating the dusty streets of the neighborhood. And on those streets, a 70-year-old grandmother was beginning the most important battle of her life, a battle she would win because love, when it is true, always finds a way. 3 weeks after the abandonment, life had found a chaotic and exhausting rhythm, but a rhythm nonetheless. Beatrice would wake before dawn, prepare miraculous breakfasts with minimal ingredients. She dressed 6 children. She took them to school. She rushed back to sew clothes for others on her old Singer machine. She picked up the children, prepared meals, helped with homework, bathed little bodies, told stories, and collapsed into bed, only to repeat it all the next day. She had lost 10 pounds. Her hands bled from so much sewing, but the children were eating. That was what mattered. That Tuesday afternoon, while the children were doing homework at the dining room table, someone knocked on the door. Beatrice opened it to find a stranger, a woman of about 40 with a clipboard and a serious expression. "Beatrice Williams?" "Yes, that's me. I'm Miss Rodriguez from Child Protective Services. May I come in?" This is a grandmother's worst nightmare. After everything she's done to keep them together, the system itself is knocking at the door, threatening to tear them all apart. Beatrice's heart stopped. She had heard stories, CPS taking children, orphanages, separated families. "What do you need?" "We received a report about 6 minors living with you without their parents present. I need to verify the living conditions." Beatrice felt the floor open up beneath her. With trembling legs, she let the woman in. Miss Rodriguez walked through the house with critical eyes, the peeling paint, the old mattresses, the tiny kitchen, the mended clothes hanging on a line. She took notes, lots of notes. The children watched from the dining room, terrified. Ethan stood up, walking toward the social worker with a bravery that belied his age. "Ma'am," he said in a clear voice, My grandma takes very good care of us. We eat every day, we go to school, she loves us. Miss Rodriguez looked at the 10-year-old boy. She saw the determination in his eyes, the protective way he stood between her and his siblings. And your mother? She left, Ethan answered simply. But we don't need her. We have Grandma. Children need their parents. Children need someone who loves them, Ethan corrected. And there was such ancient truth in his words that the social worker blinked. Beatrice found her voice. Please, she said, and she didn't care that it sounded like a plea. Don't separate them. They are all I have. I am all they have. I'll find a way. Mrs. Williams, the social worker closed her clipboard. The conditions here are concerning. Your age, your limited resources. But I love them, Beatrice cried out, and 6 children ran to hug her. I love them more than their own mother did. I would give my life for each of them. Miss Rodriguez watched them, this elderly grandmother surrounded by children clinging to her as if she were their only lifeboat in a stormy sea. Love is not enough, she said, but her voice was less harsh. They need food, clothes, medical care, and they will have it. Beatrice straightened her aching back. I will work day and night if I have to. Ma'am, you are 70 years old, and I can still work, I can still love, I can still raise these children. A silence fell over the room. The social worker sighed. I'm going to give you 3 months. 3 months to improve the conditions. Better food, adequate clothing, evidence of a stable income. If in 3 months I don't see significant improvement. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. 3 months, Beatrice repeated. Thank you. Thank you. When the social worker left, Beatrice collapsed into a chair. The children huddled around her. Are they going to take us away, Grandma? Cried Charlotte. Beatrice hugged them all, forming a human knot of arms and tears. No, she said with a ferocity that surprised even herself. Nobody is going to separate you. I promise. I swear on Almighty God. That night, after putting the children to bed, Beatrice knelt before the image of the Virgin Mary on her small altar. Dear Mother, she whispered, I need a miracle. Not for me, for them, please. And as she prayed, in the house next door, Mr. Harrison looked out his window toward the light in Beatrice's kitchen, which stayed on late into the night. He thought of the guitar stored in his closet, of the music lessons he used to give years ago, of the loneliness in his house since his wife died. Maybe, he thought, maybe he could help in a way no one expected. But that would come later. For now, Beatrice only knew she had 3 months to achieve the impossible. And somehow she would. Because true love knows no limits, and a grandmother protecting her grandchildren is a force of nature that not even the universe can stop. But that night, the defiant strength faded, leaving only the crushing weight of the impossible. Alone in the dim kitchen light, Beatrice finally allowed herself to break. The 3 months deadline wasn't a warning, it felt like a death sentence. She stared at her own hands, wrinkled and spotted with age, and saw only weakness. I can't do this, she whispered into the silence, the admission tearing from her throat. I am too old, too poor, too weak. She wasn't praying for a miracle. She had stopped believing in those the day Megan left. She was simply stating a fact. The world was too hard, and she was not enough. For a full hour, she sat and wept, not for the children, but for her own crippling inadequacy. This, she realized, was her darkest hour. And as the dawn crept in, gray and unforgiving, she found no divine answer, only the quiet, stubborn refusal to surrender. I am not enough, she agreed with the darkness, but I am all they have, so I will have to be. This is that moment of true despair, when the weight is just too much. But this quiet refusal to surrender, this decision to become enough, is the real miracle. Stay with us to see where this new strength takes her. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into a month of pure survival. Beatrice had sold almost everything of value she owned. Her wedding ring, the wedding dress stored in a box, the few pieces of jewelry left from her mother. Each object carried memories, each sale tore a piece from her heart. But the children were eating. That was the only thing that mattered. Now, in addition to sewing clothes, she had started making breakfast burritos in the early morning. She would get up at 3 a.m., her arthritic hands mixing dough, spreading salsa, and wrapping tortillas with movements her body knew by heart. At 6 a.m., Ethan would help her carry the steaming pot to the street corner, where they sold them to workers on their way to their jobs. "Fresh breakfast burritos?" Ethan would shout, his voice trying to sound strong. "The best in Indy." Some days they sold well. Other days they returned home with leftover burritos that became dinner. But it was money. Dollars that slowly accumulated in a coffee can Beatrice hid behind the statue of the Virgin Mary. Sophia, at just 8 years old, had taken on the role of a little mother. She combed Charlotte and Ava's hair, put on their shoes, wiped their noses. There was a sadness in her eyes that shouldn't exist in someone so young. Caleb and Liam, the middle brothers, had learned to be invisible. They played quietly. They never asked for new toys. They ate what was put in front of them without complaining. Childhood stolen in small daily doses. And Ava, the youngest, had stopped asking for her mommy. Instead, she called Beatrice Mommy, a title that both broke and mended the grandmother's heart every time she heard it. That Friday, Beatrice was at a local market selling clothes she had sewn all week when the world began to spin. The May heat was relentless, the air as thick as hot soup. She had been on her feet for 4 hours. "How much for the dress?" a customer asked. Beatrice opened her mouth to answer, but the words wouldn't come out. Instead, the market tilted sideways, the colors bleeding into one another like watercolors in the rain. "Ma'am! Ma'am! Somebody help!" Beatrice felt the ground hit her back. She heard distant shouts. She saw worried faces floating above her like blurry moons. "Call an ambulance." "No." Beatrice tried to get up. "The children, I have to pick up the children." But her legs wouldn't respond. The world went black. When she woke up, she was in her bed. Voices whispered in the living room. She tried to sit up, and a sharp pain shot through her chest. "Stay still, Mrs. Williams." It was Dr. Emily Carter from the Community Health Center, a 45-year-old woman with short hair and gentle hands. "The children," Beatrice tried to get up again. "They're fine." Mr. Harrison picked them up from school. "They're eating in the kitchen." Beatrice closed her eyes, relieved. What happened? Extreme exhaustion, malnutrition, high blood pressure. The doctor looked at her seriously. "Mrs. Williams, your body is at its limit. If you keep this up, you're going to die." "I can't stop." Beatrice shook her head. "You'll be no good to them if you're dead." The words landed like stones. Beatrice looked at the ceiling, feeling tears roll down her temples. "I don't know what else to do," she whispered. "I work as much as I can. I sleep as little as possible. But it's never enough. Never. You need help." "There's no one." "Yes, there is," a voice said from the doorway. Mr. Walter Harrison entered, his thin figure filling the door frame. Behind him, Ethan held Ava, with his other siblings huddled like frightened chicks. "You're not alone, Mrs. Williams." Mr. Harrison came closer. "You have neighbors. You have a community. You have Father Michael from the parish. You have us." "I can't ask you." "You're not asking. We're offering." He turned to the children. "Kids, tell your grandma we need her to be strong." "Please, Grandma," cried Sophia. "Don't leave like Mommy did." The words were a direct blow to the heart. Beatrice extended her arms, and the children rushed to her, climbing onto the bed, hugging her with the desperation of castaways. "I'm not going anywhere." Beatrice promised. "I'm not going anywhere." That evening, after the doctor left with strict instructions for rest, after the children fell asleep huddled next to her in the bed, Mr. Harrison stayed in the living room. Beatrice found him looking out the window. "Mr. Harrison, thank you for taking care of the children." He turned, his elderly eyes shining with something Beatrice couldn't decipher. "Mrs. Williams, I've been thinking." He paused. "Did you know I used to be a musician?" "Yes, I knew. I played in orchestras, taught music for 30 years. His fingers moved as if remembering chords. "After my Rosie died, I put my guitar away. I haven't played in 10 years. But lately, I've been thinking, maybe it's time to take it out." Beatrice didn't understand where he was going with this. "The children," Mr. Harrison continued, "they need more than just to survive. They need to dream. They need beauty. They need music. Mrs. Williams, let me teach them. For free, of course. I have plenty of time and a guitar that's rotting in the closet." He smiled. "Besides, Ethan has the hands of a guitarist. I saw it today when he was playing. Long fingers, a good ear, and Sophia, that girl has a voice that could make angels weep." Beatrice felt something loosen in her chest. Hope tiny, fragile, but real. "Why would you do this for us?" Mr. Harrison sat down heavily in a chair. "Because I'm lonely, Mrs. Williams. Because my house is too quiet. Because when I see those children, I see a second chance." His eyes grew moist. "Rosie and I never had children. We always regretted it. But maybe God is giving me another chance to matter to someone." Beatrice extended her wrinkled hand. Mr. Harrison took it. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you." That night, alone in her bed with 6 children scattered around the house like treasured secrets, Beatrice prayed. Not for an impossible miracle, not for Megan to return, not for riches she would never have. She prayed for strength for one more day, for one more week, for 3 months until Miss Rodriguez returned. And as she prayed in the silence of the night, she could almost hear music guitars not yet played, songs not yet sung, a future just beginning to form in the shadows. The children were going to be okay. They had to be. Because Beatrice had promised. And a 70-year-old grandmother from Indiana never breaks her promises. A week after her collapse, Beatrice felt almost human again. Dr. Carter had mobilized the community at the health center. Donations of food started arriving. Father Michael organized a collection after Mass. It wasn't much, but it was something. A breathing spell, a chance for Beatrice to rest without watching her grandchildren go hungry. But rest didn't suit Beatrice. Her hands needed to be busy, her mind needed plans, her heart needed purpose. So when Mr. Desut of Uitine, Harrison knocked on the door that Saturday afternoon, carrying a guitar in its worn case, Beatrice felt a spark of excitement she hadn't felt in weeks. "I brought my old friend," Mr. Harrison announced, holding up the guitar. "Are the children ready?" The 6 of them were huddled in the living room, staring at the instrument with wide eyes. For them, accustomed to poverty, a guitar was an almost magical object. "Grandma," whispered Charlotte, "is he really going to teach us?" "Yes, my sweet girl." Beatrice sat in her favorite chair, the only one that didn't creak too much. "Mr. Harrison is very good. Learn well." Mr. Harrison took the guitar out with reverence. It was old, the varnish worn away, showing pale wood underneath. But when his fingers touched the strings, the sound that emerged was pure, like spring water. The children gasped. "This," said Mr. Harrison, "is music. You can't eat it, you can't sell it, it doesn't pay the bills, but it feeds the soul. Do you understand?" 6 little heads nodded. Though the younger ones probably didn't understand, it didn't matter. They would, in time. "Who wants to try first?" All the children raised their hands, but it was Ethan who stepped forward. At 10 years old, he was already the protector, the brave one. If something was dangerous or unknown, he tried it first. Mr. Harrison showed him how to hold the guitar, how to place his fingers. The first notes were clumsy, discordant, but then, miraculously, Ethan found a chord, a real chord that sounded like music. "I did it," he shouted, and his smile was the first truly happy one Beatrice had seen since the abandonment. One by one, each child tried. Sophia's fingers were too small for some chords, but when she sang along with Mr. Harrison's playing, her clear voice filled the room like sunlight. Caleb discovered a natural rhythm, gently tapping the body of the guitar. Even the little ones, Charlotte, Liam, and Ava, swayed to the music. Beatrice watched them from her chair, silent tears rolling down her cheeks. Here were her grandchildren, abandoned by their mother, living in poverty, facing an uncertain future. But in this moment, they were just children making music. They were just happy. "Mrs. Williams," Mr. Harrison put down the guitar. "Do you know how to sing?" Beatrice blinked. "Me? I haven't sung in decades, but you used to, didn't you? I can see it in your eyes." It was true. As a young woman, Beatrice had sung in the church choir. She had a voice that turned heads, they said. But that was before she got married, before she raised Megan, before life taught her to be quiet and practical. "I don't remember. Songs are never forgotten." Mr. Harrison began to play a familiar melody, a hymn that Beatrice's mother used to sing. "Come on, Mrs. Williams. Show the children what you're made of." Beatrice closed her eyes. The melody wrapped around her, taking her back to being a 10-year-old girl listening to her mom sing while making biscuits. Her mouth opened, and like a miracle, the words came out. Her voice was rusty, cracked with age and exhaustion, but there was something in it, something sweet and true, that made the children fall silent and listen. She sang about love and loss, about mothers and children, about homes and hearts. She sang until the tears wouldn't let her continue. When she finished, the silence in the room was sacred. "Grandma," Sophia hugged her. "You sing beautifully, not like I used to." Beatrice wiped her eyes. "I'm old." "No," said Ethan with the seriousness he had gained too soon. "You sing like someone who has lived, like someone who knows what music is really about." Mr. Harrison nodded proudly. "This boy gets it. Music doesn't come from the throat, it comes from the heart. And you," he pointed to the 6 children, "you have hearts that know pain. That will make your music true if you practice." "Could we really play?" asked Caleb, incredulous. "You can." Mr. Harrison stood up. "I'm not promising you'll be musicians. I'm not promising money or fame. But I promise this. If you practice every day, music will give you a voice for the feelings you can't speak. It will be your shield when the world is cruel. Do you promise to practice?" "We promise," the 6 shouted in unison. "Good. Then tomorrow we start the real lessons. For now, Ethan, this guitar is yours to take care of." Ethan looked at the guitar as if he had been handed a king's treasure. "Really? Really? Take good care of it. Someday, you're going to play wonderful things with it." That night, after Mr. Harrison left, after the children fell asleep with smiles on their faces, Beatrice sat in the kitchen with a cup of chamomile tea. For the first time in 6 weeks, she wasn't calculating bills, she wasn't planning how to stretch every dollar, she wasn't worrying about the next meal. She was listening. In her mind, she could still hear the music, Mr. Harrison's guitar, Sophia's voice, the children's clumsy but determined attempts. And she realized something. The music wasn't going to pay the bills. It wasn't going to fill empty stomachs. It wasn't going to impress Miss Rodriguez when she returned in 2 months. But it had given them something more valuable: hope, joy, a reason to smile beyond mere survival. And maybe, just maybe, That was exactly what they needed. Beatrice drank her tea, looking out the window at the stars barely visible above the glow of Indianapolis. "Thank you," she whispered to whoever was listening. "For Miss Harrison, for the music, for this little light in the midst of so much darkness." In the room next door, Ethan woke up briefly. He looked at his siblings sleeping around him. Then he looked at the guitar leaning carefully against the wall. His fingers moved, practicing the chord Mr. Harrison had taught him without touching the actual strings, over and over, until the muscle remembered. "Someday," he thought, "someday, I'm going to play so well that I'll make Grandma smile every day. I'm going to earn money with music, and she'll never have to work so hard again. Someday." For now, he practiced his silent chords until sleep reclaimed him, dreaming of music he hadn't yet learned to play. And in the kitchen, Beatrice finished her tea and went back to bed, where 6 children occupied every inch of space, their soft breaths creating their own lullaby. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tomorrow would also bring music. And for now, that was enough. And this story was just beginning. 6 months had passed since the abandonment. 6 months of waking before dawn, of making breakfast burritos with hands that bled, of sleeping 3 hours a night, but also 6 months of something unexpected: music. Every afternoon after school, Beatrice's small house filled with sounds that were previously unimaginable. Mr. Harrison arrived punctually at 4, his guitar under his arm and infinite patience in his heart. And the children were transforming. Dan, now nearing 11, had developed a natural skill that surprised even his teacher. His fingers flew over the strings with a grace that belied his young age. He practiced until his fingers ached, until Beatrice had to take the guitar away so he would sleep. 5 more minutes, Grandma," he would always plead. Just this chord, just this song. Sophia had blossomed differently. Her voice, once only heard in timid whispers, now filled rooms. When she sang, people on the street would stop to listen. There was something in her tone, a purity that touched the soul. Caleb had found his place in percussion. Anything became an instrument in his hands. Pots, buckets, the kitchen table. "He has rhythm in his blood," Mr. Harrison would say. And it was true. Even the little ones participated. Charlotte had learned to sing simple harmonies. Liam discovered he could whistle entire melodies. And Ava, nearly 3, would rock to the music, her little hands clapping in perfect time. "They're good, Mr. Harrison told Beatrice one afternoon after a lesson. "No, I stand corrected. They're extraordinary." Beatrice was sewing on her singer machine, finishing a dress that would earn her $50. $50 that meant food for 3 days. "It's your teaching, Mr. Harrison." "No." The old man shook his head. "I just showed them where the notes were. They found the music. There's a difference." He paused. "Mrs. Williams, have you thought about them playing at the Christmas parties? December is only 3 weeks away." Beatrice stopped the machine. "Play in public? Why not? They could earn some tips. And the kids need—" How do I put this? They need to feel that their talent matters. That they matter. It was true. Despite the music and the small moments of joy, the children carried the weight of abandonment like invisible backpacks. At school, some classmates teased them. The kids with no mom, they called them. The poor kids from the South Side. The words hurt more than punches. "I don't know if they're ready," Beatrice hesitated. "There's only one way to find out." Mr. Harrison smiled. "Mr. Peterson, the owner of the community hall on the corner of Meridian Street, owes me a favor. I could get them a spot at the party next Saturday." Beatrice looked into the other room where the children were playing. Ethan was teaching a chord to Caleb. Sophia was singing a lullaby to Ava. They were a fractured but functional family, broken but mended with threads of love and music. "All right," she said finally. "But if they get scared, If they want to stop, then we stop. Mr. Harrison nodded. No pressure, just a chance. That night, over a dinner of beans and cornbread, Mr. Harrison made the announcement. Kids, I have some news. Mr. Peterson has invited us to play at his party on Saturday. 6 pairs of eyes widened. Ethan dropped his cornbread. Us? Play at a real party? At a real party with real people who are going to listen to you. Mr. Harrison looked at each of them. What do you say? Are you up for it? There was a silence. Then Sophia, shy Sophia, who rarely spoke first, stood up. I want to sing. I want to. I want to show them that we're more than just the kids with no mom. Her siblings looked at her. Something passed between them. A silent communication forged in months of depending on each other. Me too, said Ethan. We're going to play. And we're going to play so well that everyone will remember us. Caleb nodded fiercely. Charlotte and Liam clapped. Even Ava shouted, Music! Beatrice felt tears stinging her eyes. These children, who had lost so much, were willing to get on a stage and share their hearts with strangers. Then it's decided. Mr. Harrison smiled. We start practicing tomorrow. And I won't lie to you, it's going to be hard work. But you can do it. I know you can. The next few days were a whirlwind. Mr. Harrison doubled the lessons. 2 hours in the afternoon, plus practice during breakfast and before bed. They chose 3 songs, a traditional Christmas carol, a classic American ballad, and a cheerful song that made everyone want to dance. Ethan stayed up until midnight, perfecting every note. Sophia practiced her breathing, her scales, until her voice was a finely tuned instrument. Caleb invented rhythms with whatever he could find, creating percussion from nothing. Beatrice watched them, amazed. They had gone from abandoned, broken children to something more, to artists, to dreamers, to warriors who fought with music instead of fists. Saturday came too quickly. Beatrice dressed the children in the best clothes they had, mended but clean white shirts, pants ironed until they were crisp. Sophia wore a red bow in her hair that Dr. Carter had given her. You look beautiful, Beatrice beamed with overflowing pride. I'm nervous, Grandma, admitted Ethan, his hands trembling slightly. Beatrice knelt in front of him, ignoring the pain in her old knees. It's normal to be nervous. Even the greatest musicians feel butterflies before they play. But listen to me, Ethan. When you're up there, don't think about the people watching you. Think about the music. Think about how you feel when you play, and let it out. And what if we mess up? Then you mess up, and you keep playing. Life is full of mistakes. The important thing is not to give up. They walked together to the community hall. It was a modest building, with colored lights and streamers hanging from the ceiling. Inside, families were gathering, children running between the legs of adults, the smell of hot cider and donuts filling the air. Mr. Peterson, a heavy-set man with a thick mustache, greeted them. Walter! And these must be the famous musicians. He looked down at the children. They're small but talented, Mr. Harrison replied confidently. Give them a chance. You won't regret it. Mr. Peterson shrugged. All right, they've got 15 minutes after dinner. No more. 15 minutes. Beatrice's stomach tightened. Would it be enough? The party went on. Families ate, laughed, celebrated. The children waited in a corner, Ethan clutching Mr. Harrison's guitar like a lifeline, Sophia breathing deeply, Caleb nervously tapping his palms. Finally, Mr. Peterson got up on the small makeshift stage. Ladies and gentlemen, we have some special entertainment tonight. Some young musicians are going to play for you. Let's give a round of applause for, he looked at Mr. Harrison questioningly. The Williams siblings, Ethan said suddenly, his voice clear despite his fear. The Williams siblings, Mr. Peterson announced. 6 children walked onto the stage. They looked so small up there, so vulnerable. Beatrice clenched her hands until her knuckles turned white. Ethan sat on the stool, adjusted the guitar, looked at his siblings, nodded, and began to play. The first chords were shaky. People were still talking, eating, not paying much attention. But then Sophia opened her mouth and sang. The hall fell silent as if someone had pressed pause. Her voice was as clear as a church bell, sweet as honey, filled with an emotion that shouldn't exist in a 9-year-old. She sang about family, about love, about homes that aren't buildings but hearts bound together. Caleb joined in with rhythmic claps. Charlotte and Liam sang simple but perfect harmonies. Ava clapped in time, smiling as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Beatrice saw tears in the eyes of people she didn't know. She saw smiles. She saw Mr. Peterson, the skeptical owner, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. When they finished the first song, there was a moment of absolute silence, then an explosion of applause. The children looked at each other, surprised. They had done it. They played the second song with more confidence, the third with pure joy. 15 minutes turned into 20, then 25. No one stopped them. Everyone wanted to keep listening. When they finally came down from the stage, they were surrounded by people, offering hugs, congratulations, and yes, tips, wrinkled dollar bills, coins, more money than Beatrice had seen in months. "You were wonderful," said an elderly woman. "I haven't heard anything so pure in years." "Do you play anywhere else?" asked a young man. "I'd like to hire you for my daughter's party." Mr. Peterson approached Mr. Harrison. "You were right. They're extraordinary." He looked at Beatrice. "Ma'am, if you want, they can play here every weekend. I'll pay them $50 a night. $50 for doing something the children loved. This is the moment. They didn't just earn $50, they earned their dignity back. The music isn't just feeding their souls anymore, it's finally feeding their bodies." Beatrice almost fainted with emotion. "I accept," she said in a trembling voice. "Thank you so much, Mr. Peterson." That night, they walked home with their pockets full and their hearts even fuller. The children couldn't stop talking, reliving every moment, every applause, every smile from the audience. "Did you see when that lady cried?" Sophia said excitedly. "And when everyone clapped," shouted Caleb. Beatrice listened to them, holding Ava's hand, feeling something she hadn't felt in so long she had almost forgotten its name. Hope. At home, after putting the children to bed, she counted the money with Mr. Harrison. $230 more than she earned in a week of sewing. Mr. Harrison. Beatrice took his wrinkled hand. "I have no words." "You don't need words, Mrs. Williams. I saw their faces. I saw what the music gave them. That's payment enough for me." "But it's more than music." Beatrice shook her head. "It gave them dignity. It gave them purpose. It gave them a future." Mr. Harrison nodded wisely. "Music has that power. It heals what words cannot reach." That night, Beatrice prayed her usual prayers but added something new. Gratitude for Mr. Harrison, for the music, for this unexpected path that had opened before them. The children had talent. People recognized it, and maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something bigger than any of them could imagine. But for now, as she listened to the soft breathing of 6 children sleeping in her house, Beatrice knew only one thing. They had found their voice, and no one, ever again, could take it away from them. The following months brought a new routine, a mix of old responsibilities and fresh opportunities. Beatrice still woke before dawn to make breakfast burritos, but now she also prepared the children for performances. Mr. Harrison continued giving lessons, but they were increasingly focused, more professional. The Williams siblings, as they now called themselves, played every weekend at Mr. Peterson's hall, and people came not just neighbors, but people from other parts of the city who had heard about these extraordinary children who played with broken hearts but unbreakable spirits. The money helped. They weren't rich, they would never be, but there was enough food, clothes that weren't completely mended, new school supplies, small dignities that made life a little easier. But it wasn't all music and applause. One afternoon in March, Ethan came home with a split lip and a torn uniform. Beatrice, who was preparing dinner, felt her heart drop to the floor. What happened? Who did this to you? Ethan, now 11 and growing fast, tried to walk past her. It's nothing, Grandma. Ethan Michael Williams. Beatrice used his full name, which always meant she was serious. Tell me what happened. The boy sank into a chair, and suddenly he looked like what he was. An 11-year-old boy who had carried too much weight for too long. Some kids from school, they said. They said we were poor, pathetic, that we were begging for money with our music, that our mom left us because we were an embarrassment. Beatrice felt fury burn in her chest. How dare they? How dare these cruel children, probably repeating what they heard at home, hurt her grandson? And what did you do? I shut them up. Ethan looked up, his eyes shining with unshed tears and wounded pride. I told them we were better musicians than they would ever be at anything, that people applauded us because we had real talent, not because they felt sorry for us. And then they hit me. It was 3 against 1. Ethan wiped the blood from his lip. But I don't regret it, Grandma. Someone has to defend our name. Beatrice knelt in front of him, taking his bruised face in her hands. Oh, my boy. My brave, foolish, wonderful boy. She hugged him tight. You never, ever have to fight to prove your worth. You are worthy because you exist, because you have a huge heart, because you take care of your siblings, because you are you. But they said, people will always say things, especially when they're scared. Scared of what? That you're better than them. That despite everything you've lost, you're happier, more talented, more loved. Beatrice looked him straight in the eyes. Envy makes people say horrible things, but their words only have the power you give them. Caleb ran in, followed by Sophia. They saw Ethan's injuries and their faces filled with rage. It was those idiots from the 7th grade. Caleb clenched his fists. You're not gonna do anything. Beatrice stopped him. Violence solves nothing. It only creates more violence. So what do we do? Asked Sophia. Let them pick on us? Beatrice thought carefully before answering. No, we don't let them pick on us. But we don't fight with fists. We fight by being better, by being kinder, by being so extraordinary that their insults sound empty compared to our truth. I don't understand, mumbled Caleb. You will. Beatrice stood up, her old knees protesting. Tonight, instead of practicing, we're going to talk. We're going to talk about who we are, where we come from, and where we're going. That night, after dinner, they all sat in the living room. Even the little ones participated, sensing the seriousness of the moment. Children, Beatrice began, I want you to know something. Your mother left you. That's true, and it hurts. I know it hurts. The children shifted uncomfortably. They rarely spoke directly about Megan. But that doesn't define you. You are not the abandoned children. You are Ethan, the brilliant guitarist who plays as if he were born with strings on his fingers. Sophia, the singer who makes strangers cry with the beauty of her voice. Caleb, the percussionist who finds music in everything. Charlotte, Liam, Ava, each with your own gift, your own light. But people will always remind us that we're poor, Sophia said quietly. That we wear old clothes. That we live on the south side. So what? Beatrice shrugged. Poverty is temporary. Ignorance is forever. You study, you learn, you grow. Those kids who bully you, they'll stay stuck in their cruelty while you soar. Soar? Ava looked up, taking the word literally. Beatrice smiled. Yes, my love. Soar on wings of music. Ethan dabbed his split lip, thoughtful. Grandma, do you ever regret keeping us? I mean, you could be resting, without all these worries. Beatrice interrupted him immediately. Ethan, look at me. She waited until all eyes were on her. You are the best thing that has ever happened to me. It's hard, yes. I get tired, yes. My bones ache every day. But do I regret it? Not for a second. Not for half a second. You gave purpose to my old age. You gave me reasons to get up every morning. You gave me... Her voice broke. The children ran to hug her, forming a mass of arms and legs and pure love. We love you, Grandma, they said in chorus, and I love you more than my own life. Mr. Harrison, who had been sitting quietly in a corner, cleared his throat. You know what, kids? I think we should show those bullies what you're made of. Not with violence, with music. What if we prepare something special for the school's spring festival? The festival? Sophia's face lit up. Could we perform? Why not? Show everyone that you're not victims. You're artists, you're warriors. You're the Williams siblings. The idea caught on like fire. Suddenly, everyone was talking about songs, arrangements, what to wear. The incident with the bullies wasn't forgotten, but it was transformed, turned into fuel to shine even brighter. That night, as Beatrice treated Ethan's lip with an antiseptic cream, the boy asked her, Grandma, do you think Mom will ever hear us play? Beatrice paused. It was a question none of them had asked in months. I don't know, my sweet boy. Honestly, I don't know. If she heard us, do you think she'd be sorry? Beatrice thought of Megan, her daughter who had chosen freedom over responsibility, who had fled from her own children. She felt the familiar pain, but also something new. Forgiveness not complete, not easy, but it was there. I think, she said carefully, that if your mom heard you, she would realize what she lost. But Ethan, you can't live waiting for her regret. You have to live for yourselves. I know, Ethan nodded. I just wonder sometimes. It's normal to wonder. But don't let the questions stop you from living the answers. Ethan smiled despite his swollen lip. Sometimes you talk in riddles, Grandma. It's a privilege of the old. Beatrice ruffled his hair. Now, off to bed. Tomorrow we start preparing for the festival. The following weeks were intense. Mr. Harrison prepared them for a 20-minute performance. They chose songs that told their story. Abandonment, pain, but also resilience, love, hope. Sophia wrote a song, just 4 simple verses, but every word came from her 9-year-old heart that had seen too much. My mom left one day without a goodbye, but my grandma stayed with all her love held high. We are 6 siblings, united by a song. And music heals us, makes us strong. When she sang it for the first time, everyone cried. Even Mr. Harrison had to wipe his eyes. That one, he said in a hoarse voice. That's the song you're going to play. The day of the festival arrived. The school was decorated with colorful banners. Parents filled the courtyard. The boys who had bullied Ethan were there with mocking smiles, expecting the Williams siblings to make fools of themselves. But when they got on stage, when Ethan played the first chord and Sophia opened her mouth to sing her song, something magical happened. The courtyard fell silent, the mocking smiles faded, and by the time they reached the chorus, some parents were crying. It wasn't just children playing music, it was their bare souls, their pain transformed into beauty, their story told in melodies. This is the power of their truth. They took the bullies' insults and turned them into art, silencing the hate with pure, honest talent. And people are starting to notice. When they finished, the silence lasted for 3 full seconds, then a standing ovation. Everyone, even the bullies, clapped until their hands hurt. The school principal approached her afterward. "Mrs. Williams, those children are extraordinary. Have you thought about taking them further? Competitions, maybe?" Beatrice looked at the 6 sweaty, happy children hugging each other on stage. "We just want them to be happy," she replied. "If music makes them happy, then yes, we'll take them as far as they want to go." Because that was the truth. It didn't matter where they ended up. What mattered was that they had found something no one could take from them. That voice, forged in pain but polished with love, was going to take them to places not even Beatrice could yet imagine. Summer arrived in Indianapolis with its suffocating heat and streets that smelled of melted asphalt. The children had finished the school year with honors, all with good grades despite the circumstances. Beatrice felt pride swell in her chest every time she saw them doing homework, concentrating over worn notebooks. The musical performances had multiplied. They no longer just played at Mr. Peterson's hall. Now they were invited to sweet 16 parties, weddings, baptisms. The Williams siblings were becoming known in the neighborhood. "They're the hope of the South Side," people said. "Look what they've done despite everything." The money they earned, Beatrice saved religiously, part for immediate expenses, part for emergencies, and part, though it seemed impossible, for the future. Ethan wanted to study music formally one day. Sophia talked about being a professional singer. They all had dreams now, and Beatrice was going to do everything she could to make them come true. One Saturday in July, they were playing at a birthday party when Beatrice noticed a young man recording them with his phone. It wasn't unusual. Many people recorded them. But this young man seemed particularly interested, getting closer, capturing different angles. After the performance, he approached Beatrice. "Ma'am, sorry to bother you. I'm Alex. I have a small YouTube channel where I share local music. Would you allow me to upload this video?" Beatrice didn't know much about YouTube. The children had explained it was where people watched videos, but she still struggled with her basic cell phone. "Is it free?" she asked. "Completely. And who knows, maybe more people will get to know you. You have so much talent." Beatrice looked at Ethan, who was carefully putting the guitar away. She looked at Sophia, drinking water after singing. She looked at all her grandchildren. "All right," she decided. "You can upload it." Alex smiled. "Thanks. Oh, and one more thing. Do you have a special story? People like stories." Beatrice hesitated. Their story was painful, private. Did she really want to share it with strangers? But then she thought of other children, other grandparents, other broken families. Maybe their story could help someone else. "Yes," she said finally, "we have a story. One about abandonment and love, about how music can heal what seems broken forever." And she told him not everything, not the most painful details, but enough. How Megan left. How 6 children were left with a 70-year-old grandmother. How music gave them hope. Alex's eyes grew wider as he listened. This is incredible. With your permission, I'm going to include your story in the video. Do what you think is right." Beatrice nodded. She didn't think much more about it. She had too many other things to worry about. Mr. Harrison had been coughing lately, a deep cough that left him breathless. The diabetes he had mentioned a year ago was getting worse. It made him slower, more tired. "Mr. Harrison, you should see a doctor," Beatrice would tell him. "Ah, it's just the years catching up," he'd reply, though they both knew it was more than that. Still, he continued to give lessons because the children needed him, and because teaching them gave him purpose. "A day without music," he'd say, "is a day wasted." 2 weeks after the birthday party, Beatrice was at the market selling her burritos when Mrs. Gable, the gossipy neighbor, ran up to her. "Beatrice, Beatrice, have you seen it?" "Seen what, Mrs. Gable?" "The video. The kids are on the internet." Thousands of people are watching them. Beatrice blinked, confused. What video? Mrs. Gable showed her her phone. There, on a small screen, were the Williams siblings playing. And below, numbers that grew as she watched. 15,000 views, 20,000 views, 25,000 views. What does this mean? Beatrice took the phone with trembling hands. It means people are sharing it, Beatrice. All over Indiana. Look at the comments. Beatrice squinted, trying to read the small letters. These kids are incredible. The story made me cry. What a brave grandmother. America needs more families like this. Hundreds of comments, thousands, all positive, all moved, all sharing the video with others. Beatrice felt the world spin. She didn't know what this was, but it was big. Bigger than the South Side, bigger than her small world. I have to tell the children, she mumbled, handing back the phone. She ran home as fast as her 71-year-old legs would allow. She found Mr. Harrison giving a lesson. The children focused on a new song. Mr. Harrison, she interrupted, breathless. The video. Thousands of people. All over Indiana. Mr. Harrison turned pale. Then a slow smile spread across his face. They uploaded it. Yes. And people loved them. The children stopped playing, looking at each other with wide eyes. Are we famous? Liam asked, with the innocence of his 5 years. I don't know, Beatrice laughed, a hysterical sound of joy and fear. I don't know what we are, Mr. Harrison stood up, swaying slightly. Beatrice steadied him. This is what I told you, he whispered. They're extraordinary. And now the world knows it. The following days were a whirlwind. The video kept growing. 50,000 views, 100,000. Local journalists called, wanting to do stories. Radio stations invited them on. Suddenly, the Williams siblings weren't just from the South Side. They belonged to Indiana. And with the attention came something unexpected, a call from Nashville. Beatrice answered the phone with trembling hands. Beatrice Williams? This is Jessica Miller. I'm a music producer. I saw the video of your grandchildren, and I need to meet them. Can I travel to Indianapolis next week? Beatrice almost dropped the phone. A music producer? Like, a real one? A real one? I work with RCA Records, and I believe the Williams siblings have something special. Very special. When Beatrice hung up, she sat down heavily in a chair. Mr. Harrison watched her expectantly. It was a producer, Beatrice said slowly, as if saying the words too fast might make them disappear. From RCA Records, she wants to meet the children. From selling burritos on the street to a call from RCA Records. This is the miracle Beatrice prayed for, but it's happening so fast. Is this the answer to all their problems? Or the beginning of new ones? Holy God. Mr. Harrison made the sign of the cross. It's happening. It's really happening. What's happening? Ethan walked into the kitchen. Beatrice looked at him, this 12-year-old boy who had matured too quickly, who had carried so much weight on shoulders too young. Ethan, my love, I think your lives are about to change. The next 7 months were a whirlwind. Jessica Miller, true to her word, arranged everything. Beatrice, with the help of Father Michael, navigated the legal contracts. The children continued their studies, their fame growing locally, but they spent weekends preparing, writing, and refining their story under Mr. Harrison's watchful eye. When March arrived, nearly 2 years after the abandonment, they were ready, and she didn't know whether to cry with joy or fear, because dreams that come true can be just as terrifying as those that are broken. But one thing was certain. The Williams siblings had arrived, and America was listening. Jessica Miller arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, driving a car that shone too brightly for the streets of the South Side. She was a 32-year-old woman, modern and professional, in designer jeans and an elegant blouse. But her eyes were kind when Beatrice opened the door. "Mrs. Williams, it's an honor to meet you." "The honor is ours." Beatrice invited her in, suddenly embarrassed by the peeling walls, the old furniture, the evident poverty of her home. But Jessica didn't seem to notice. Her eyes went straight to the children, who were sitting on the sofa like frightened little birds. "So you're the Williams siblings," she smiled. "I've watched your video hundreds of times. You have something that can't be taught. You have heart." "Thank you," murmured Ethan, clutching Mr. Harrison's guitar. "Can you play something for me?" No cameras, no pressure, just music. The children looked at each other, nodded, and began. They played Sophia's song, the one about abandonment and love. Jessica listened with her eyes closed, and when Sophia reached the chorus, tears rolled down her cheeks. When they finished, Jessica clapped softly. "Incredible. Absolutely incredible." She leaned forward. "I want to make you a proposal. I want to produce a professional album with you. With the full support of RCA, we'd give you an advance, fair royalties, and the chance to record songs that all of America will hear." The silence in the room was so thick you could cut it. "An album?" Beatrice could barely process the words. "Like real singers. Like the real artists you are," Jessica corrected. "Because that's what you are. Artists." Mr. Harrison, who had been quiet in a corner, cleared his throat. "Miss Miller, these are children. They need to go to school, to have a childhood." "Of course," Jessica nodded. "I'm not proposing they abandon their lives. We'd record during vacations, on weekends. Education would be a priority. But the opportunity is now. The video has 1 million views and counting. America wants to know them." Beatrice looked at the children. Ethan's eyes were bright with hope. Sophia was biting her lip, excited but scared. The little ones just looked on, confused but thrilled. "Can we think about it?" Beatrice asked. It's a lot to process, of course. Take all the time you need." Jessica took out her business cards. "But I want you to know something. I've been in this business for 10 years. I've seen thousands of artists. And these kids have something I've maybe seen 3 times before. They have magic. And magic doesn't wait." After Jessica left, the family sat in silence. The weight of the decision was enormous. "What do you think, Grandma?" Sophia finally asked. Beatrice thought about the last nearly 2 years, the abandonment, the pain, the poverty, but also about the music, how it had healed their broken hearts, how it had transformed victims into artists. "I think," she said slowly, "that life is giving us a chance we never imagined. But I also think that the most important thing is you, your happiness, your well-being." "I want to do it," Ethan said firmly. "I want all of America to hear our music. I want to show them that we're not just poor kids with no mom. We're musicians, we're artists." "Me too," Sophia nodded. "I have things to say, and music is my way of saying them." The other children added their voices, a chorus of yeses, of excitement, of dreams finally taking shape. Beatrice looked at Mr. Harrison. "What do you think?" The old teacher smiled, though there was a sadness in his eyes, a sadness Beatrice couldn't yet understand. "I think it's their destiny. And you don't fight destiny. You embrace it. Then it's decided." Beatrice took a deep breath. "We're going to call Miss Miller. We're going to make the album." The children shouted with joy, hugging each other, dancing in the small living room. Beatrice watched them, her heart so full it ached. But amidst the celebration, she noticed Mr. Harrison. He had gotten up silently and walked to the window, looking out at the streets of the South Side he had called home his whole life. "Mr. Harrison," Beatrice approached him. Are you okay? He turned, and in his eyes she saw something that scared her, something like a farewell. I'm more than okay, Mrs. Williams. I'm complete. He took her hand. I brought them as far as I could. Now they need bigger wings than mine. Don't say that. You're part of this, part of us, and I always will be, he assured her. But my work here is almost done. Mr. Harrison, he placed a finger on her lips. Let's not spoil this moment. The children are going to fly, and we old folks will applaud from down here. Beatrice wanted to protest, but something in his expression told her there were things he understood, things about his health, about his time that she wasn't ready to face yet. Instead, she hugged him. This man who had come into her life at the exact moment they needed him, who had transformed pain into music, who had believed in 6 children when no one else did. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. Don't thank me yet, he laughed. I still have to prepare them for the recording, and believe me, I'm going to be stricter than ever. If they're going to record for RCA, they're going to do it perfectly. The following weeks were intense. Mr. Harrison prepared them like never before. Vocal technique for Sophia, complex chords for Ethan, precise rhythms for Caleb. Every detail perfected until it hurt. Again, he would say when they made a mistake, from the top. And they would do it again and again, because they knew this was important. This was their chance. Beatrice signed the contract with Jessica, reading it 3 times with Father Michael to ensure everything was fair. And it was, more than fair, generous even. The advance was enough to buy a new house, to get the children out of the South Side if they wanted. But when Beatrice asked them, they all shook their heads. The South Side is our home, Ethan said. This is where we started. This is where we stay. So Beatrice used the money for other things. Decent clothes, their own instruments, nutritious food. And for the first time in nearly 2 years, she could sleep without worrying if there would be breakfast in the morning. Life was changing fast, maybe too fast. But as the children practiced, as music filled the house, Beatrice knew everything was going to be okay. They had survived the worst. Now it was time to thrive. The viral video had reached 1 million views. The contract was signed. The children, who had started as abandoned and broken, were now on the threshold of something extraordinary. But with success came new questions, new challenges, and somewhere, in a distant city, a mother who had abandoned her children was beginning to hear rumors about a musical group called the Williams Siblings. And in her selfish heart, seeds of a return that no one asked for and no one needed began to sprout. The recording studio in Indianapolis was a world Beatrice had never imagined stepping into. Padded walls that absorbed every sound, microphones that cost more than everything she had ever owned, bright screens showing sound waves like the very heartbeat of the music itself. The children were in awe, touching everything with reverence, their wide eyes reflecting the professional lights. Welcome, Jessica Miller greeted them with a confident smile. This will be your home for the next few weeks. This is where the magic happens. Ethan, now 12, and having grown several inches in the last few months, held his new guitar as if it were a sacred treasure. It was a professional instrument, a gift from the record label, with strings that sounded like liquid silk under his fingers. Are we really going to record here? He asked, his voice trying to sound mature but unable to hide the excitement. You really are. Jessica guided the group to the main booth. You'll be working with the best engineers, the best session musicians. But the most important thing you'll record is your truth, your story, your heart. Beatrice watched from a corner, her wrinkled hands clasped in her lap. Nearly 2 years had passed since the abandonment. Nearly 2 years felt like a lifetime. And now here they were, in a professional studio, about to record an album that would be sold across America. Mr. Harrison sat beside her, moving more slowly than before. His cough had worsened. His skin had taken on a pale tone that worried Beatrice deeply. But his eyes, those ancient eyes that had seen so much, shone with pride. "We did it, Mrs. Williams," he whispered. "Look at them, from abandoned children to artists recording their first album. You did it." Beatrice took his gnarled hand. "Without you, none of this would be possible. I just showed them the path. They were the ones who had the courage to walk it. The first sessions were intimidating. Professional engineers adjusted levels. Producers suggested changes. Session musicians added layers of instruments the children had never heard before. It was overwhelming, almost too much. Sophia, used to singing in the intimacy of their home or at small parties, froze in front of the professional microphone. "I can't," she cried after the third failed attempt. "It's too big, too important. What if I ruin it?" Jessica knelt in front of her, taking her small hands in hers. "Sophia, do you remember why you sing? Because it makes me happy." "Exactly. And that happiness, that truth, is what people want to hear. Not technical perfection. They want to feel what you feel." Jessica pointed toward the control booth where Beatrice was watching. "Sing for her. Sing for your grandmother who worked until her hands bled so you could eat. Sing for your brothers and sisters. Sing your truth, and everything else will follow." Sophia looked at Beatrice through the glass, her grandmother, who had sacrificed everything, who had turned her old age into a constant battle to keep them together. And something opened in her chest. She returned to the microphone, closed her eyes, and when she began to sing, she didn't think about technique or being perfect. She thought about love, about sacrifice, about the nights Beatrice sewed until her fingers bled, about the mornings she made burritos before dawn, about every hug, every word of encouragement, every promise that she would never leave them. Her voice filled the studio like golden light. When she finished, there were tears in the eyes of everyone present. Even the sound engineer, a man who had recorded hundreds of artists, wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "That," Jessica said in a choked voice, "that is exactly what we needed." The weeks of recording became a new routine. School during the week, studio on weekends. The children learned to balance education with music, responsibility with dreams. Beatrice insisted that homework be done before they could even think about songs. Education was still the priority, no matter how successful they became. One afternoon, while Ethan was recording a particularly complex guitar track, Jessica sat next to Beatrice. "Mrs. Williams, I want to talk to you about something important." Beatrice felt a chill of worry. "Is something wrong?" "No, nothing wrong. Quite the opposite. The album will be ready by April. We want to do an official launch concert at the Murat Theater. 3,000 people. Live streamed on the internet." Jessica paused. "It's going to be huge." Beatrice processed the words slowly. The Murat Theater. 3,000 people. Her mind couldn't even fathom such a scale. "Are the children ready for that?" "More than ready. They have the talent, they have the story, and above all, they have heart." Jessica smiled. "America is waiting for them, Mrs. Williams. And I think they're ready to surprise the country." That night, Beatrice told Mr. Harrison. The old man listened in silence, his fingers drumming a rhythm only he could hear on the table. "It's their moment," he said finally, "their big moment. Mr. Harrison, you'll be there, right? At the concert. You have to be." There was a long silence, too long. "Mrs. Williams?" Mr. Harrison took her hand. "There's something I need to tell you. I went to the doctor last week." Beatrice's heart stopped. "Diabetes. It's affected my kidneys, my heart. The doctors say," his voice broke, "they say I don't have much time left. This is just heartbreaking. The man who gave them their future is losing his own." Beatrice now has to carry this terrible secret while the children are on the verge of their biggest triumph. No. Beatrice shook her head violently. No, you're going to be fine. You have to be. The children need you. I need you. The children have me every day I have left. And you, Mrs. Williams, you are the strongest person I know. You will be fine. Everyone will be fine. Tears streamed freely down Beatrice's face now. It's not fair. After everything you did for us, life is rarely fair. But sometimes, if we're lucky, it's meaningful. Mr. Harrison smiled through his own sadness. And these last 2 years, teaching your grandchildren, watching them grow and flourish, have been the most meaningful of my life. You gave me purpose when I was alone. You gave me family when I had no one. How could I ask for more? Beatrice hugged him, this frail man who had been so strong for them, and cried on his shoulder like a child. Thank you, she whispered between sobs, for everything, for believing in them, for saving them. I didn't save them. Mr. Harrison gently pushed her away, looking into her eyes. You saved them. With your love, with your sacrifice, I only gave them music. You gave them life. They decided not to tell the children yet, not until after the album, after the concert. Let them have this moment of joy without the shadow of impending loss. Mr. Harrison continued giving lessons, though he tired more quickly now. The children noticed something was different, but they attributed his fatigue to age, to the long practice sessions. The album was completed in early April. Grandma's Love, it would be called, a title that had been Ethan's idea. 12 songs, each telling a part of their story. Abandonment, pain, but also hope, love, resilience. When Jessica brought them the first physical copies, Beatrice held the CD as if it were the most precious object in the world. On the cover, a photo of the 6 children with her in the middle, all smiling. A family forged not by blood, but by choice, not by circumstance, but by love. This is real, Beatrice murmured. It's really happening. Just wait until you see the response. Jessica was practically bouncing with excitement. The pre-orders have already broken records. And the concert, Beatrice? It's completely sold out. 3,000 tickets in 2 hours. The children screamed with joy, danced in the living room, hugged each other into a mass of arms and legs and laughter. And Beatrice, watching them, felt her heart so full she thought it might explode. They had done the impossible. They had taken the worst imaginable situation and transformed it into beauty. But amidst the celebration, she noticed Mr. Harrison. He was sitting in his favorite chair, smiling, but not participating, watching, as if memorizing every detail of this moment. And Beatrice knew, with the terrible certainty that comes from loving someone deeply, that Mr. Harrison's time was running out. That night, after putting the children to bed, she sat with him in the kitchen. The concert is in 2 weeks, Beatrice said. Will you be able to? I'll be there, Mr. Harrison promised. If it's the last thing I do, I will be there to see them triumph. And Beatrice had to be content with that promise, knowing that some things were beyond her control. All she could do was hold his hand and thank God for every day she had left with this man who had changed their lives. Music had saved the children, but Mr. Harrison had brought the music, and for that, she would be eternally in his debt. Thank you, she said again, because it would never be enough. Thank you, Mr. Harrison just nodded, his eyes closed, his fingers still drumming silent rhythms on the table. The music would never leave him, not even at the end. And Beatrice found comfort in that his legacy would live on through 6 children who had learned to transform pain into melodies, tears into songs, loss into love. The day the album was released came like a storm of emotions. Grandma's Love debuted on a Tuesday in April, available on all digital platforms and in physical stores. Jessica had organized a media tour, radio shows, television interviews, appearances on major national networks. Beatrice had never seen her grandchildren on television. When she turned on the old set in her living room and saw Ethan and Sophia sitting on an elegant sofa, talking to a famous host about their story, she had to sit down because her legs wouldn't support her. "What was it like, growing up without your mother?" the host asked with a false compassion that made Beatrice want to scream. But Ethan, with the maturity of his 12 years and the wisdom of someone who had lived too much, answered calmly, "It was hard at first. We felt lost, abandoned. But then we realized we had something many children don't have. A grandmother who loves us more than words can say, and 5 siblings who are my truest family, more real than blood." He looked directly at the camera, and Beatrice knew he was speaking to her. "My grandma taught us that family isn't who gives you life, but who chooses to stay when life gets hard." Beatrice cried in front of the television, tears of pride and love rolling down her wrinkled cheeks. The album exploded. Literally, sales surpassed all expectations. Grandma's Love hit #1 on iTunes in the US within 24 hours. The songs were on every radio station. The story of the Williams siblings became a national sensation. And with the success came something Beatrice had feared but known was inevitable: unwanted attention. One afternoon, a week after the launch, Jessica called, her voice tense. "Beatrice, I need to warn you about something. Some journalists are trying to locate Megan, your daughter. They want her side of the story." The name that hadn't been spoken in 2 years fell like a stone in still water, creating ripples that threatened to disturb the peace they had so carefully built. "Did they find her?" Beatrice asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know, but it's possible she'll find you. The kid's success is everywhere. It's impossible for her not to have seen it." That night, Beatrice sat with the older children, Ethan, Sophia, and Caleb, now 12, 10, and 9 respectively. "We need to talk about your mom," she said, and watched them tense up. "We don't want to talk about her." Ethan crossed his arms. "She's not part of this. She's not part of us." "I know, my love. I know. But it's possible that your success will reach her ears. It's possible she might try to contact you." Sophia, who rarely showed anger, clenched her fists. "If she shows up, I don't want to see her. She left us. She abandoned us when we needed her most. She has no right to show up now that things are going well." "You're right," Beatrice nodded. "She has no right. But if she does appear, I want you to be prepared, to know how to react." "And how should we react?" asked Caleb, his voice heavy with a pain he had learned to hide behind rhythms and smiles. Beatrice thought carefully before answering. "With dignity, with your heads held high, remembering who you are, talented artists, loyal siblings, loved children. You owe her nothing. Not explanations, not forgiveness, not second chances. But you don't owe her hatred either. Hate would only hurt you." "I don't know if I can hate her," Ethan admitted. "She left us, Grandma, like we were trash. And that's her loss. Because look at what she missed." Beatrice gestured around them, at the walls that now had posters of the album, at the instruments that filled the house, at the 6 children who had grown up in love despite it all. She missed this. She missed you, and she has to live with that for the rest of her life. They didn't know then how prophetic that conversation would be. They didn't know that in just a few days, Megan would reappear in their lives like a ghost from a past no one had invited. For now, they focused on what was important, the approaching concert. 2 weeks, just 2 weeks until they played for 3,000 people at the Murat Theater. The practices intensified. Mr. Harrison, increasingly frail but still stubborn, insisted on directing the rehearsals. His cough was worse, His hands trembled, but his ear was still perfect. Again, Sophia. The second verse needs more emotion. You're not singing words, you're telling your life story. Ethan, that chord, cleaner. If you're going to play for 3,000 people, every note has to be perfect. Caleb, the rhythm, don't rush. Music is like a conversation. You have to listen to each other. He pushed them because he loved them. He pushed them because he knew this concert would be his last chance to see them shine. A week before the concert, Mr. Harrison collapsed during a rehearsal. One moment he was correcting Charlotte's harmony. The next he was on the floor, pale as paper, struggling to breathe. Beatrice screamed. The children rushed over. Someone called an ambulance. At the hospital, the doctor was direct. His heart is failing. His kidneys are barely functioning. We can keep him comfortable, but... The doctor looked at Beatrice with eyes that had delivered too much bad news. It's a matter of days. Maybe a week, if he's lucky. The concert is just 6 days away. Their mentor, their savior, is dying. This story is now a race against time. Can they give him this one last triumph before he's gone? The concert is in 6 days, Beatrice said, and she hated herself for thinking about music when Mr. Harrison was dying. But Mr. Harrison, weak in the hospital bed, but with his eyes still bright, took her hand. I'm going to be there, he said, his voice barely a whisper. I promise. You need to rest. I've rested enough. He coughed, each breath an effort. I've waited my whole life for this moment. I'm not going to miss it. The children came to visit him, one by one. Ethan showed him the new suit he would wear for the concert. Sophia sang to him softly. Caleb tapped out rhythms on the side of the bed. The little ones brought him drawings. And Mr. Harrison received each gift like the treasure it was, memorizing faces, voices, the love that filled that hospital room. You have been my greatest joy, he told them, my most important legacy. Promise me you'll keep playing, no matter what happens. We promise, they chorused, not fully understanding it was a goodbye. But Beatrice understood. She saw the peace in his eyes, the acceptance. Mr. Harrison had completed his mission. He had taken 6 broken children and given them wings of music. Now, all that was left was to watch them fly. The day of the concert dawned clear and bright. Beatrice woke early, her bones protesting but her spirit unbreakable. Today was the day. The day they would prove to the whole world that love wins, that a chosen family is as strong as one of blood, that music can heal what seems irreparably broken. Mr. Harrison had insisted on leaving the hospital. The doctors had protested, but finally gave in to his iron will. They brought him in a wheelchair, connected to oxygen tanks, so fragile it seemed a strong wind could carry him away. But his eyes shone with life. The Murat Theater was a cathedral of culture, with velvety red seats and perfect acoustics. Beatrice had never been in such an elegant place. She felt out of place in her simple dress, among people wearing clothes that cost more than everything she owned. But when she saw her grandchildren backstage, nervous but radiant in their new outfits, everything else disappeared. Grandma, Ethan hugged her. I'm terrified. Me too, my love, Beatrice admitted. But look, she pointed to the filling auditorium. 3,000 people came to hear you. 3,000 people who believe in you, who want to hear your story, your music. Sophia was biting her lip, a habit she had when she was nervous. What if we mess up? What if we disappoint everyone? Beatrice took her face in her hands. It's impossible for you to disappoint anyone. Do you know why? Because you've already won. You've already triumphed. Just being here, after everything you've been through, is already a victory. Everything else is just... She searched for the right word. It's just music, shared with the world. Jessica appeared with headphones and a clipboard, coordinating 1,000 details at once. 5 minutes, she announced. Are you ready? The children looked at each other. 6 siblings who had survived the worst life could throw at them together. They nodded. We're ready. Beatrice kissed each of them. A blessing, a prayer, an I love you that contained 2 years of sacrifice and hope. And then she went to her seat in the front row, right next to Mr. Harrison in his wheelchair. The lights dimmed, the theater filled with expectant silence, and then, from the stage, Ethan's voice. Good evening. We are the Williams siblings, and this is our story. The first note from the guitar filled the space like liquid light. Then Sophia's voice, clear and pure as a crystal bell. Caleb on percussion, Charlotte and Liam on backing vocals, little Ava clapping in perfect time. They sang about abandonment, about a mother who left, about a grandmother who stayed, about a love stronger than blood, about music that heals broken hearts. 3,000 people listened in absolute silence. And when Sophia sang the chorus of Grandma's Love, the song written specifically for Beatrice, there wasn't a dry eye in the theater. Beatrice cried without shame, tears rolling down her cheeks as she watched her grandchildren on that enormous stage, owning it with their presence, their talent, their truth. Mr. Harrison beside her was crying too, tears of pride, of joy, of farewell. We did it, he whispered to Beatrice. We did it. And she took his hand, squeezing it tight as the music enveloped them both. On stage, Ethan approached the microphone. We want to dedicate this last song to 2 people. First, to our grandmother, Beatrice Williams. The spotlight swung to her. She is the reason we are here. Her love, her sacrifice, her faith in us when no one else believed. Grandma, this is for you. The crowd erupted in applause. Beatrice wanted to hide, but Ethan wasn't finished. And also to Mr. Walter Harrison, our teacher, the man who taught us that music comes not from the fingers, but from the heart. The spotlight found Mr. Harrison. Maestro, this is for you too. The song that followed was new, one they had composed in secret. It was called Wings of Music, and it was about teachers who give their students wings, about love that transcends death, about legacies that live forever. And as they sang, Mr. Harrison closed his eyes, a smile of absolute peace on his face. His fingers, those fingers that had played guitar for 70 years, moved one last time, following the rhythm. Beatrice felt it. The exact moment he was gone. His hand went limp in hers, his breathing stopped, and he simply departed. In peace, in music, surrounded by the family he had helped create. Beatrice held him, crying silently, while on stage her grandchildren continued to sing, not yet knowing that their teacher had just flown home. The song ended. The applause was deafening, a standing ovation that lasted a full 10 minutes. The children came down from the stage, radiant and exhausted. They ran toward Beatrice, ready to hug her. And then they saw Mr. Harrison. They saw his stillness, his peaceful smile, and they knew. No! Ethan fell to his knees. No, no, no! Sophia sobbed against Beatrice's shoulder. Caleb, Charlotte, Liam, little Ava, they all cried as reality hit them. Their teacher was gone. The man who had given them music, who had believed in them, who had loved this fractured family as his own, was gone. But he had waited. He had waited to see them triumph. He had waited to hear their music one last time, and he departed with a smile. That night, as paramedics gently and respectfully took Mr. Harrison's body away, as Jessica handled the press and the commotion, Beatrice gathered the children. Mr. Harrison gave us a gift, she said, her voice hoarse from crying. He gave us music. He gave us hope. He gave us a future. And the best way to honor him is to keep playing, keep singing, keep living with the love and passion he taught us. How? Cried Sophia. How do we go on without him? Together, Beatrice hugged them all. As always, together. And in the midst of the pain, in the midst of the loss, the children found comfort in that simple truth. Together, they could handle anything. Even saying goodbye to someone they loved. The music would continue. Mr. Leiber 7. Harrison's legacy would live in every note they played, in every song they sang. And he, wherever he was, would be smiling, because he had fulfilled his purpose. He had taken broken children and given them wings, and now those wings would carry them to heights not even he had imagined. A week after Mr. Enderbaugh's Asian, Harrison's funeral, life began to find a new rhythm, one marked by absence, but also by gratitude. The children played his guitar, now officially inherited by Ethan, with reverence. Every chord was a prayer, every melody a memory. The album, Grandma's Love, continued to break records. 2 weeks at #1, hundreds of thousands of copies sold, contracts for performances across the country. The Williams siblings had become a national phenomenon. With success came money, more money than Beatrice had ever seen. Jessica managed it all through a trust, ensuring the children were protected, their future secure. You could buy a new house, Jessica suggested, in a better neighborhood, with more space. But when Beatrice asked the children, the answer was unanimous. "The South Side is our home," Ethan said firmly. "This is where we started. We're not abandoning our roots just because we have money." So instead of moving, they renovated. They painted the walls, fixed the leaky roof, bought new furniture but kept the old pieces that held memories. They created a space that was comfortable without being ostentatious, improved without forgetting where they came from. And on the main wall, they framed Mr. Harrison's guitar next to a photo of him smiling, surrounded by the 6 children. "We never forget," was the silent message. 3 more years passed. The void Mr. Harrison left was immense, but his legacy filled it. The children, now teenagers and pre-teens, honored him by throwing themselves into their music and their studies. The Williams siblings released 2 more chart-topping albums. Their fame grew, but their roots held fast. They toured nationally, balanced schoolwork on buses, and always returned to the South Side home that love had rebuilt. Life settled into a new, successful, demanding rhythm. And Beatrice, watching her grandchildren blossom, finally felt a sense of peace. The chaos had, at last, given way to stability. Beatrice, now 75, allowed herself to rest a little. Not much. She would never be the type to sit still. But she no longer had to get up at 3 a.m. to make burritos. She no longer had to sew until her fingers bled. The children were fine, more than fine. One afternoon in May, she was in the kitchen preparing chili, a recipe she had learned from her own grandmother, when Sophia ran in. "Grandma, Grandma, look at this." She held out her phone, showing a message on social media. Beatrice wiped her hands on her apron and put on her glasses. The message was from an unknown account, but the content made her blood run cold. "Hi, it's your mom. I saw what you've achieved. I'm so proud. Can we talk?" Beatrice felt a violent mix of emotions. Rage at the abandonment, pain for the lost years, and something smaller, harder to admit curiosity about what had become of her daughter. "What do we do, Grandma?" asked Sophia, her eyes full of uncertainty. Beatrice took a deep breath. "We let each of you decide. She is your mother, after all. If you want to see her, I'll support you. If you don't, I'll support that too." The children gathered that night, a family council where every voice counted, from 15-year-old Ethan to 7-year-old Ava. "I don't want to see her," Ethan said immediately. "She left us. She has no right to come back now that we're successful." "I don't know," Sophia admitted. "Part of me wants to ask her why. Why weren't we enough?" Caleb was clearly angry. "If she comes, I want to tell her exactly what I think of her." The little ones were confused. Ava, who barely remembered Megan, asked with heartbreaking innocence, "The bad mommy who left us?" And those words, from the mouth of a 7-year-old, crystallized everything. "We won't respond," Beatrice decided. "Not yet. If she really wants to see you, let her make the effort. Let her come here. Let her face what she did." But they didn't have to wait long. 3 days later, on a sunny Saturday, a sleek car pulled up in front of their house, a black BMW that shone like a mirror, so out of place on the dusty streets of the South Side that neighbors came out to look. From it emerged a woman of 40 whom Beatrice barely recognized. Megan, her daughter. But not the Megan who had left 5 years ago, thin and desperate. This Megan wore expensive clothes, jewelry that glittered in the sun, perfect makeup. She looked prosperous. 5 years. 5 years of silence. And now Megan returns, looking rich and successful. She didn't come back when they were starving. She came back when they were stars. This confrontation is going to be painful. And behind her, a man in a suit, tall, distinguished, clearly wealthy. Beatrice stepped out onto the porch, her legs trembling but her back straight. The children huddled behind her, staring at this stranger who was once their mother. Megan stopped halfway up the walk. For a moment, they just looked at each other, mother and daughter, separated by 5 years of silence and pain. "Hello, Mom," Megan said finally, her voice shaky. "Megan," Beatrice kept her voice neutral. "What a surprise. I saw the video, the album. The children are incredible." Megan looked past Beatrice, searching for her children's faces. "They've grown so much." Yes, Beatrice didn't move from the doorway. Children grow, even without their mothers. The verbal blow made Megan flinch. "Mom, I need to explain. I need you to understand." "Understand?" Beatrice's voice was tempered steel. "Understand that you abandoned 6 children with their 70-year-old grandmother? Understand that there wasn't one call, not one letter, not $1 in 5 years? What exactly do I need to understand, Megan?" The man behind Megan cleared his throat. "Ma'am, I'm Richard Thompson, Megan's husband. We understand this is complicated, but Megan has changed. She's had time to reflect. And who are you to speak?" Beatrice cut him off. "Did you know your wife has 6 children she abandoned?" Richard paled, looking at Megan with something that looked like betrayal. "She told me they were older, that they were with their father." "You lied." Beatrice turned to her daughter. "Even now you lie." Megan started to cry, tears streaking her expensive makeup. "Mom, please, I made mistakes. But I've changed. Richard gave me a new life. I have money now. I can help." The man, Richard, stepped forward. "What my wife means is, with their talent and our connections, we could manage them. Ensure they get the best deals, protect their interests. They need family looking out for them." Beatrice's laugh was bitter and cold. "Interests? Now you're interested? Where were you when we had nothing to eat? Where were you when I collapsed from exhaustion? You don't see children, Megan. You see dollar signs. You see a comeback story for you. You didn't come to help. You came to take." I was surviving," Megan sobbed. "I couldn't handle the pressure. The kids, the poverty, the loneliness. We all face pressure, Megan. Not all of us abandon our children." Ethan stepped forward, standing beside Beatrice. "You didn't come for us," he said with a maturity that was heartbreaking. "You came because we're successful now. Because now we're worth something in your eyes." "No, son, that's not it." "Don't call me son," Ethan cut her off. "A son is someone you care for, someone you protect, someone you love. We are Grandma's grandchildren, Mr. Harrison's students, the Williams siblings. But we are not your children. You gave up that right 5 years ago." Sophia stepped forward too, tears in her eyes but her voice firm. "I wrote a song about you. Do you want to hear it? It's about a woman who chose her freedom over her children, who preferred silence over responsibility. It's a sad song, but it's also about how we survived without her. Megan reached out her hands desperately. Please, let me explain. Let me be a part of your lives again. I have money. I can give you things. We don't need your things. Caleb joined his siblings. We have everything we need. Megan turned back to Beatrice, pleading, Mom, please, tell them to give me a chance. Beatrice looked at her daughter, this woman who had grown in her womb, whom she had nursed, whom she had raised with all the love she had, and she felt nothing. Not hate, not love, just a kind of empty sadness for what could have been and never was. I can't tell them anything, Megan. It's up to them to decide. Megan looked at the 6 children, waiting, searching for any sign of forgiveness, of welcome. But what she found were eyes that had learned to live without her, hearts that had healed in her absence, a family that had been forged not by her presence, but in spite of her abandonment. Go away, Ethan said finally. And thank you. Thank you? Megan blinked, confused. Yes, thank you for leaving. Because if you had stayed, we never would have learned how strong we are. We never would have met Mr. Harrison. We never would have found the music. Ethan stood up taller. Your abandonment hurt us, but it also sets us free. And with those words, the 6 children turned and went back into the house, leaving Megan on the street with her expensive clothes and her empty promises. Beatrice stayed a moment longer. Megan, if you've really changed, I'm glad for you. I hope you find peace. But that peace can't come at the cost of hurting your children again. They've moved on. And you should too. Mom, goodbye, Megan. And Beatrice closed the door. Inside, the children were huddled on the sofa, processing the confrontation. Beatrice joined them, forming their usual family knot. Did we do the right thing? Sophia asked in a small voice. You did what was right for you, Beatrice assured them. And that's the only thing that matters. Outside, they heard the car start and drive away. Megan, returning to her new life, her rich husband, her world where 6 abandoned children were just a mistake from the past she preferred to forget. But inside, in that small house filled with love, the Williams siblings knew their truth. They didn't need the one who left them. They had the one who stayed, and that was more than enough. The confrontation with Megan left emotional ripples that lasted for days. The children processed their feelings in different ways. Ethan immersed himself in music, practicing until Beatrice had to take the guitar away so he would sleep. Sophia wrote songs, transforming pain into lyrics she would one day sing. Caleb beat out stronger, more urgent rhythms, as if he could expel the sadness through percussion. The little ones, especially Ava, were confused. For them, Megan was more of a concept than a memory, a ghostly figure from stories, not a real person who had once cared for them. Is the bad mommy gone forever? Ava asked one night as Beatrice tucked her in. Yes, my love. She's gone. Good. Good. The little girl nodded with the absolute certainty of her 7 years. You're my real mommy. And Beatrice had to leave the room to cry in private, overwhelmed by the fierce love she felt for these 6 little humans who had turned her old age into purpose. 2 months passed. Summer arrived with its relentless heat. The children finished the school year with honors, all with excellent grades. Ethan received a full scholarship to study at the Jacobs School of Music at Indiana University when he was old enough. Sophia was invited to a Young Talents program. They were all flourishing in ways that would have been impossible 5 years ago. Their 4th album was already in production. Fame hadn't changed them. If anything, it had made them more aware of their roots, more grateful for what they had. One Saturday in August, Jessica organized a special performance at the Murat Theater. 20,000 people, their biggest concert to date. This is the next level, Jessica explained as they reviewed the plans. After this, we start talking about international tours, South America, Spain, the rest of the U.S. Beatrice listened, amazed and a little scared. Her grandchildren playing in other countries seemed impossible. But then, everything about the last 3 years had seemed impossible. The week of the concert was chaotic. Daily rehearsals, press interviews, costume fittings. Beatrice watched from the sidelines, no longer actively participating, but always present. Her role had shifted from desperate protector to proud matriarch. The day of the concert, 20,000 people filled the auditorium. Beatrice had a VIP seat in the front row. Next to her, they had left a chair empty, with Mr. Harrison's guitar carefully placed on it. For the maestro, Ethan had said. Even if he can't be here physically, his spirit plays with us. When the lights went down and the Williams siblings took the stage, the roar of the crowd was deafening. Ethan, now 15 and almost a man, stepped up to the microphone. "Good evening, Indianapolis. We have a story to tell." And they told their story not just with words, but with music. Each song was a chapter. Abandonment, struggle, Mr. Harrison appearing like a guardian angel, music saving them, success arriving when they least expected it. Sophia sang a new song, written specifically for this concert. It was called Goodbye to Ghosts. And it was about letting go of those who abandon you, about closing doors that should never have been opened, about finding peace in the family you choose. And as she sang, somewhere in Chicago, Megan was watching the concert, live-streamed on the internet. She was alone. Richard had turned out to be less understanding than he seemed. When he discovered the whole truth about the abandonment, he had left her. Now she lived in a big, empty house, with money but no love, with luxuries but no purpose. She watched her children on the screen, so talented, so successful, so happy. Happy without her, and the realization hit her like a hammer on glass. She had made the biggest mistake of her life. She had traded family for freedom, love for comfort, and had ended up with neither. Tears streamed down her face as she listened to Sophia sing about letting go of ghosts, and she knew that she was that ghost, a shadow from the past that her children had learned to exorcise. And there it is. Megan finally understands. She traded a family for comfort and ended up with neither, while the children she abandoned have found everything. At the Murat Theater, the concert reached its climax. The 6 children, now all on stage, sang their signature song, Grandma's Love, together. 20,000 people sang the chorus with them. 20,000 voices celebrating the love that doesn't abandon, the sacrifice that saves, the family that is chosen. And in the front row, Beatrice cried tears of pure joy. These were her grandchildren, her family, her legacy. When it was over, the ovation lasted a full 15 minutes. The children came down from the stage and ran directly to Beatrice, hugging her in a group, not caring that 20,000 people were watching. "We love you, Grandma," they chorused. "And I love you," Beatrice replied. "More than words can ever say." That night after the concert, Jessica had news. The international tour is confirmed. 12 countries in 6 months. "Beatrice, they're going to conquer the world." Beatrice looked at the children, their faces glowing with excitement and exhaustion. "Is this what you want?" she asked. "Because if you'd rather stay, have a normal childhood. Normal doesn't exist for us anymore, Grandma." Ethan smiled. "But that's okay, because we have something better than normal. We have extraordinary." "And you'll come with us?" asked Sophia. "We can't do it without you." Beatrice, 75 years old, with arthritis in her knees and gray in her hair, smiled. "Children, I would follow you to the end of the earth if I had to. Then get ready, Mrs. Williams." Jessica laughed. "Because that's exactly where we're going. And so the family that began with abandonment and desperation, that was forged in poverty and saved by music, prepared for their next adventure. But no matter where they went, no matter how far they flew, they knew one fundamental truth. Their home wasn't a place, it was each other. It was the love they had built together, note by note, day by day, tear by tear. And that home, no one could ever take from them. 6 months later, the international tour had been a triumph. Buenos Aires, Santiago, Madrid, Barcelona, in every city, the story of the Williams siblings touched hearts, not just for their music, but for what they represented: resilience, family, hope. But finally, they returned home. To America, to Indianapolis. The house they had renovated was waiting for them exactly as they had left it. The neighbors threw a welcome home party. Mrs. Dodd, Gable had made her best casserole. Father Michael blessed the home again. It was as if they had never left, except that everything had changed. The children had grown. Ethan was almost an adult at 15, his voice having deepened. Sophia was a young lady of 13 with a newfound confidence. They had all matured, had seen the world, had learned they were capable of more than they ever dreamed. And Beatrice. Beatrice was tired. Not in a bad way, but in the way one feels after completing a long, difficult race. The kind of tiredness that comes with satisfaction, with knowing you did what you had to do. That first night back, after the children were asleep in their own beds, after the neighbors had gone home, Beatrice sat in her familiar kitchen with a cup of tea. She looked around this house that had been the stage for so much pain and so much joy. The walls that had witnessed tears and laughter, the table where they had eaten in hunger and in plenty, the space where a family had been forged against all odds, and she knew her work was done. Not completely, never completely. The children would always need her in some way. But the hard part, the pure survival part, was over. They had made it to the other side. She thought of Mr. Harrison, whose absence still ached like an open wound. She thought of Megan, whom she had forgiven in her heart, even if she would never tell her so. She thought of her late husband, of her own parents, of all who had come before and made this moment possible. "We did it," she whispered to the silence. "Against all odds, we did it." A soft noise made her turn. Ava was in the doorway, her worn teddy bear under her arm. "I can't sleep, Mommy," she said, using the title she had given Beatrice since she could remember. "Come here, my love." Ava climbed onto her lap, nestling into Beatrice's arms as she had 1,000 times before. "Mommy, are we always going to be together?" Beatrice kissed her little head. "Always. Maybe not in the same house one day. Maybe you'll get married, have your own families, but you'll always be together right here." She touched Ava's heart, because that's what real family means. It's not who shares your blood, it's who shares your life, like you shared your life with us. You are my life, my sweet girl, the best part of it. Ava yawned, her little eyes closing. "I love you, Mommy, and I love you. You and your 5 brothers and sisters, more than anything in this world." She carried Ava back to bed, tucking her in next to her sisters. Then she checked on the boys in the other room, sleeping peacefully, their faces relaxed and happy. Finally, she returned to her own room. She knelt before her small altar, the image of the Virgin Mary lit by a small candle. "Thank you," she prayed, "for the strength to keep going. For Mr. Harrison, who appeared when we needed him most. For the music that healed our hearts. For every day you gave me with these children. Thank you." She lay down in her bed, her 75-year-old bones protesting, but her spirit at absolute peace. Outside, Indianapolis slept. But inside, in that small house that had contained so much life, a family rested. A family that had begun with abandonment and ended with love. A family that had transformed the worst betrayal into the sweetest triumph. A family that had proven that when love is true, it is stronger than any adversity. And as Beatrice fell asleep, smiling despite her weariness, one final truth resonated in her heart. True love never abandons. Never. Epilogue. 3 months later, the November sun streamed through the windows of the renovated house, bathing everything in golden light. Beatrice was in the kitchen, teaching Charlotte how to make cinnamon rolls. The same wrinkled hands that had made thousands of burritos in times of need now did so for pleasure. Like this, my love. You spread the butter gently, with love. The secret to good food is the love you put into it. Charlotte, 11 years old, followed the instructions, her tongue stuck out in concentration. In the living room, Ethan practiced his guitar while Caleb experimented with new rhythms. Sophia was writing lyrics in her notebook, preparing for their 5th album. Liam and Ava played in the yard, their laughter drifting in through the open window. The one sacred day where there were no performances, no interviews, nothing but being together. The doorbell rang. Beatrice wiped her hands, wondering who it could be. They weren't expecting visitors. She opened the door to find a young woman in her 20s with a camera and a microphone. Beatrice Williams? I'm a journalist from a local news station. We're doing a special on extraordinary families. And Beatrice held up a hand, stopping her. I'm sorry, miss. Sundays are private. For family only. But it's just a quick interview about how you managed to raise 6 grandchildren alone, how the Williams siblings got where they are. The how is simple, Beatrice smiled. Love, sacrifice, music, and the grace of God. That's all you need to know. But don't you want to share your story? Inspire others? Beatrice looked back inside, toward the sound of music and laughter, toward the life they had built together. My story is being told. Every time my grandchildren sing, every time they play, every time they show that love conquers abandonment. She began to close the door. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have cinnamon rolls to make and grandchildren to hug. She closed the door softly, but firmly. Inside, Ethan had started playing a new melody. Sophia joined in, singing. Caleb added a rhythm. One by one, the 6 children created spontaneous music, improvising, laughing, just being siblings who shared the universal language of love. And Beatrice watched them from the kitchen doorway, Charlotte by her side, still with dough on her hands. Grandma? Charlotte looked up at her. We're lucky, aren't we? Beatrice thought of everything they had been through, the abandonment, the poverty, the nights of hunger and days of fear, the loss of Mr. Harrison, the confrontation with Megan, every obstacle that had threatened to destroy them. And then she thought of what they had now. Each other, music, a bright future, a love as vast as the ocean and as strong as steel. Yes, my love, she finally answered. We are the luckiest people in the world, because they had learned the most important lesson, that true fortune isn't in what you have, but in who you love. That family isn't defined by who gives you life, but by who chooses to stay when life gets hard. And that true love, the love that sacrifices, that perseveres, that never abandons, that love can transform the impossible into the inevitable. And the Williams siblings, with Beatrice as their heart and Mr. Harrison as their soul, had created exactly that. A story that America would never forget. A legacy that would live forever, and a family that proved that true love never, never abandons. We are truly grateful that you stayed until this very moment, experiencing every emotion of the story with us. Thank you for listening. If this story and the work we do truly resonates with you, please consider becoming a channel member. Every bit of support, no matter how small, is an invaluable motivation, helping us continue to tell stories like this, to keep spreading hope, and to keep